everybody, welcome to Cooking It Real. I'm Kathy and I'm so glad you could join me in the kitchen. Today I'm going to take you right back to my childhood. When I was growing up in South Boston, Massachusetts, and later after we moved out to the burbs into Holbrook, Massachusetts, this was a standard Saturday night supper. I don't know anyone that grew up in New England that did not have Boston baked beans and brown bread for their traditional Saturday night supper. And I say supper. I told my daughter, I think I'm going to do the whole video in my Boston accent. She said, you can't do it. Ha ha, challenge accepted. Let's take a look at our ingredients. Now, this dish doesn't take a lot of ingredients, but what it does take is a lot of time. So I have used 2 pounds of white navy beans that I've soaked overnight. Now, you might think this looks like a ton of beans, and yeah, it's a ton of beans. It does take a long time to cook, so you might as well make a lot. You'll want to make more than just one supper's worth. All right, so like I said, I got 2 pounds of white navy beans that I soaked overnight and drained. I have a pound of bacon. I have 1 good big onion. I've got some molasses, brown sugar, salt, pepper, ground mustard, and a little bit of baking soda to get the beans cooking. All right, let's start. The first thing we're going to do is give these beans a little bit of a simmer. I don't always do this, but if you do this step and you have any kind of sensitivity toward the gaseousness of beans, this will help a lot. Okay, into the pot. Now this pot doesn't need to be this big, but this is the one I got. So I want 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Boop. And then we're going to add water. We want to add water to cover. I have my kettle hot, so I'm just going to cover these beans with a mixture of cold and hot water. Put on the lid, put it on the stove, get it up to a simmer and simmer it for 10 minutes. Then we're going to drain the beans and rinse them. Then we really start putting things together. Let's get our onion and our bacon ready. So the onion, we're just going to dice it up. Doesn't have to be big, doesn't have to be small. I like to make it around the same size as the beans, to be honest. Let's see. Whew, it's making me cry. Gotta rinse my knife. Give a little wipe with cold water here. That helps to neutralize the power of the onion a little bit. Let me put this off to the side so it's not right under my nose. Let's just cut this into kind of bite-sized pieces. Now, it might help to put this in the freezer for 10 minutes or so, firm it up a little bit, make it easier to cut, but I didn't do that, so it is what it is. Let's see if I can go like this. Now, that's a little better. There. It's about half and half, more or less. Okay, cooking it real. Look what just happened. I had this lid on top of my pot with the beans. It boiled over. All this foamy stuff was on top. Made a mess of my stove. New plan. Either bring it up with the lid ajar or leave the lid off altogether so you can keep a better eye on it than I did. Now we're going to make our molasses sauce. Okay, we're going to start with a 1/2 cup of brown sugar. We're going to add our dry seasonings. That is 4 teaspoons of salt, 1 teaspoon of ground black pepper, and 2 teaspoons of dried mustard. Everyone in. Let's see, let's give this a little mixy mix first. Add 2/3 of a cup of molasses. This is what gives it that awesome taste. This is my 1/3 cup measure, so do it one. Ooh, yeah. And this recipe comes from a restaurant that is no longer in service in the Boston area. It was called Durgan Park, and it was in the Faneuil Hall Marketplace, Quincy Market area. And it was one of the oldest restaurants in continuous service for, well over 100 years. It's a great place. They had sassy waitresses and really good baked beans. All right, here we go. Well, that's all there is to it. I'm going to need a spatula to get this out of the bowl when the time comes. And it's almost time. Just a couple more minutes. We're going to start by putting all of the onions in the bottom of the pot. Okay, then we're going to put in half of the beans. That's about half. Flatten that out. Then we're going to put in half the bacon. All right, let's finish this up. I'm just kind of making sure I get some along the edges so everybody gets a little bit of this goodness. Yeah, baby, come on. All right, now we're going to add the rest of the beans. Everybody in. Good. Flatten that out. And then the rest of the bacon. Now, if you are a purist, Yankee, New Englander, you might use salt pork or fatback instead of bacon. But bacon is much easier to find these days, and it tastes way better, in my opinion. Fatback is kind of like what it sounds like. It's just basically the fat part. It doesn't have any like meat to it, and not a big fan. At Durgan Park, they used to sell the old-fashioned bean pots. You know, the kind I'm talking about there. They were usually brown, a dark brown, and they were glazed ceramic, and they had like a rounded kind of pot-bellied body, flat bottom, pot-bellied body, and a cute little top with a knob on top. And they used to sell those as souvenirs at Durgan Park, and they were full-sized. You know, you could buy little tiny ones like that you could put up, you know, on a knick-knack shelf, or as my Nana used to say, a whatnot shelf. But you could use the big ones. You could make your own Durgan Park beans in your own oven every Saturday for supper and relive the experience. I think they probably gave away the recipe with every bean pot. I don't know. But like I said, this is such a traditional Saturday night supper. Now you want to take the sauce and you want to put it on top of the beans, just like so. And then we're going to pour some water over this. And the trick is not to stir. You're going to cook these beans in the oven. The recipe, the Durgan Park recipe, says to cook it at 300 degrees for 6 hours. Well, I do it for 325 degrees for about 4 to 5 hours. So that's what we're going to do. And I've made this many times before, and I just love it. Okay. Everybody in nice, sticky, icky goodness. I got some hot water in my kettle. I'm going to use it to rinse this bowl out a little bit. Don't want to waste anything. Us Boston girls, we're frugal. Just going to gently pour this out over top. And what you want to do is you want to put in enough water to just barely cover the beans. Almost there. Need a little bit more. There we go, just barely covered. Now resist the urge to stir. Don't do it. This is going to go into my 325 oven for 4 hours, maybe 5. I'm going to check it at 4. And with those beans, after a couple hours, you want to give them a check, and you want to make sure that the water level hasn't gone down too much. It should still be pretty close to the top. If it isn't, you need to add a little more water. And actually, if you add like hot water as opposed to cold water, it'll keep the cooking rolling. And when you do check it, at that point, if everything's good, then you can give everything a stir. Let's talk about the second aspect to our Saturday night supper, and that is the brown bread. Now, I have to tell you, my mother would serve hot dogs and beans, is what we called it, hot dogs and beans and brown bread on Saturday nights. Now, she didn't make them from scratch. She did not have the Durgan Park recipe. She just opened a can of B&M brick oven baked beans and B&M brown bread baked in the can. And we loved it. And then just hot dogs. We loved it. But many years later, when I was in my late 20s, I started making the Durgan Park recipe and making my own Boston baked beans. Game changer. It was totally different. Absolutely fabulous. I promise you, if you like and enjoy canned Boston baked beans, you're going to love these. For the brown bread, we need rye flour. Okay, this is 1 cup of rye flour. Now, rye flour isn't always very easy to find at your local grocery store. It won't come in the big 5-pound bags unless you live in certain areas, but you can find them in these specialty bags. Okay, this is like, how much is this? It's like 1 pound and a little bit, and from Bob's Red Mill, and they have all kinds of different flours. It's a little bit pricey, but you have to have the rye flour for this recipe. And if you can't even find this at your local store, you can definitely order it online. Bob's Red Mill. They have all kinds of things. All right. We're going to need buttermilk. We're going to need more molasses. We're going to need some cornmeal, some raisins, some baking soda, and some salt. And that's it for the brown bread. But in order to make the brown bread, we have to have equipment. And I'm going to show you those ingredients right now. So we're finally going to get to use the cans that I've been asking you to save. I got something very interesting to show you about those in a minute. But let me just go over what we need. We need 3 14.5, 15-ounce cans. These are 2 tomato sauce cans. This is a can of fruit. We're going to need parchment paper, tin foil. We're going to need a pot that is tall enough that when the cans go in it on a rack, you can put the lid on. So a lidded pot that will fit these cans. A rack, and I can tell you if you don't have a rack, this is the rack from my Instant Pot. I will show you how to make a rack without a rack. We need some kitchen twine, some scissors, and a marker to trace on the parchment paper. I find you can maybe try a pencil. Pen does not work. Before you ever put your brown bread batter together, you need to prepare your cans. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is get a piece of parchment paper. Now, I have made this recipe numerous times. Back in the day when I started making my own Boston baked beans, I didn't have parchment paper back then. I did have wax paper. So if you don't have parchment but you have wax paper, you can use that. All right, take a marker. You want to trace around the bottom of the can. We're going to have a little piece of paper to sit at the bottom. and help us get out our brown bread. All right, 1, 2, 3, and then we're just going to cut those out. These are all about the same size cans, even though they came from different things. I hope you can see that when I cut these circles, I cut inside of the magic marker line. Now there's something important that I got to show you. Now, I have made this brown bread a number of times, but it's been a few years. It really has. I'd say it's been like about 8 or 9 years since I've made this brown bread. And something has changed since that last time I made brown bread. So I was thinking about it the other day, and I knew I was going to make this video. I promised you I was going to make this video. Y'all have been wondering what the heck she's going to do with those cans for weeks now. And I said, I'm going to test it. Because it's been a while, I'm just going to test it, make sure everything goes okay. Well, you know what has changed since the last time I made brown bread in a can? The can. Okay? And here's the big innovation that I absolutely love in cans, but it absolutely made a problem for me. And that is pop tops. This can right here is the can of fruit. All right, now if you look, that's just a can, and here's the edge. Can you see that? Can I get it up close? Is this the better side? Let's see. Yeah, it's nice and smooth here. But look at this guy. This is a pop top can. Can you see this? See this lip? There's like a rim here. Yeah, there's a rim here. There's no rim here. And when I tried to get my breads out of here, they hung up on this rim. I'm like, what am I going to do? But I did figure it out. We're going to take a piece of parchment paper, give it a little bit of a crease right here so we can see the height. I'm just going to cut this real quick. We are going to make like a tube, very loose, and put it in to the can and just let it be easy. We don't want to jam it up against the sides or anything like that. We just want it to be loose and easy. All right? Then we're going to put our little round in the center and be on our way. So, problem solved. All right, before we do start the batter, let me just show you one more thing. Here's the rack to my Instant Pot. You can use a rack like this. You want to check and make sure that your cans are going to fit with the lid on. Ta-da, just like that. Okay, now if you have a bigger pot with a lid that you could fit like 3 more cans in, a bigger pot like this, I would suggest doubling this recipe, okay, because you're definitely going to want more. If you don't have a rack like this or a steaming basket or something like that, this is how you can make a rack. You take a piece of aluminum foil, and I'm not going to do it because I don't want to waste the foil because I don't need to. But anyway, you take like a long sheet about this long, okay? Rip it off and then kind of roll it up. So you have a tube of aluminum foil that you've kind of crunched all together. And then you just take it and you wind it into a coil that will fit inside your pot. And you might mash it down a little bit so that your cans will sit nice and square on it. But that will be just as good of a rack. What you're trying to do basically is just keep the cans off of the bottom. Right before we start making the batter, I want to put about 1.5 inches higher than the rack of water in this pan and get it boiling. So that would be about 2 inches of water in this particular. Can you see? So about 2 inches of water in there, get it on the stove and get it boiling. All right, let's start with our dry ingredients. 1 cup of rye flour, 1/3 of a cup of fine cornmeal. Now make sure this is plain cornmeal. You don't want cornmeal mix or cornmeal breading or anything that has baking powder, baking soda, or salt or anything like that in it. Plain ground cornmeal. We want 1/2 teaspoon of salt, This is my 1/4 teaspoon measure, so 1, 2, that's a half. We need 3/4 of a teaspoon of baking soda, 1/4 teaspoon measure. So we go 1, 2, 3. Okay, and let's whisk that together. Mix it up a little bit. Then we need a 1/2 cup of raisins. Now, this is a little bit more than 1/2 cup, but I like a lot of raisins, so I'm just going to go for it. And then we're going to add our liquid ingredients. So we need 1/3 of a cup of molasses. Same molasses we used for the beans. I think I got 1/3 of a cup in there. I have another jar just in case. And if you don't use molasses a lot, where you'll find it generally is one of two places. It's gonna most likely be in the baking part of your grocery store, the baking aisle. And if it's not there, it could be with the honey and the maple syrup. These 2 jars I found in the baking aisle. And they were on the top shelf too, so if you're a short person, you might need some help. All right, now we got 1 cup of buttermilk, and this is the real deal. Although if you don't have buttermilk, you can make your own by taking 1 cup of milk and adding lemon juice or vinegar to it, a couple of teaspoons. And the buttermilk has, it's acidic, and it will start acting with that baking soda right away, pretty much. So that's why you want to have your cans ready. You don't want to mix this batter and then try to get your cans ready, because you want to get this going just as soon as you're able. Make sure I get it all off the sides. And now we want to load our cans. Okay, we don't want to fill these cans more than 2/3 full. All right, so let's start with this easy one so we can see it nice and easy. Yeah, it's a little tedious. What we're putting in is about a cup. But you do want to divvy it up. And what I do is I'll put it in all 3 cans, and then I'll go back and see who might need a little bit more. Now, in this one, you just want to try to put it right down the middle. You don't want to push it up against the sides or do anything else like that. You want it to just kind of fall in there. And this batter is not very pourable, so I mean, if it was more liquid, you could put it like in something with a spout, like a big measuring cup or something, and that would make it so much easier. But it's kind of ploppy, so you just got to do what you got to do. Oop, careful now. All right, now see, I don't want any to go down into this little crack here, so I'm just going to gently push that over. Oop. Now my pot of water is boiling, so that's good news. That means the pot is ready for us. We don't have to wait on it. All right, just the last little bit here. Waste not, want not. Another frugal Yankee thing. All right, now we're going to get our lids on. Take a piece of foil, and we're going to cut it or tear it. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold in just a tiny bit. We're just going to take this foil, and we're just going to put it on the top. See, I'm just going to push that in just a tiny bit, like so. That's not going to compromise anything. And then we're going to kind of press it on down. This one. We're going to press it on down. The recipe suggests that you tie it with some kitchen twine or a sturdy rubber band. So you want to cut yourself about 12 to 14 inches of string. And you want to tie it. Now, you can make a little bow if you want. Or you could make a knot. You just want to have it be secure. And what we want is for the water to go 2/3 up. Not 2/3 up, halfway up the side of the can. 2/3 full, halfway up the side of the can. That is almost halfway up. But I'm going to add just a little bit of hot water just to give it some extra. Okay, we want to put the lid on. Bring that back up to a boil. Okay, now that we got it going again, we're going to turn it down to a gentle simmer, medium low, lid on, 40 minutes. Okay, 40 minutes. Ooh, yeah. Get the heat off. Now you want to use tongs to remove these cans. Or if you're a canner and you have a jar lifter, that would be another perfect tool. At the very least, you would want to use pot holder because these are hot, hot, hot. All right, so we want to put them on a cooling rack, and then we want to take off the foil lids. Cut our string. And then we're going to let these sit in the cans and cool for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to turn them out of the can. All right, so, and let them cool completely. Oh, yeah, look at that. Hold it up. There we go, see? Doesn't that look nice? Wait till it comes out of the can. Okay, it's been 2 hours and 45 minutes. We're like halfway there. Now we can give it a stir. Let's see, where's the water level? See, there it is. It's not that, it's doing good. All right, let's stir them up. Oh, oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna put these back in the oven for another couple hours. Oh, it smells amazing. All right, and then it's almost time to take our brown bread out of the cans. Let's see, these are cool enough that I can handle them. Let's see how we did. Now, if you'll notice on this one, some of the overspill hardened. So I'm just going to take a knife and run it around the edge. Let's see. Here we go. I can feel it. It's a-coming. Oh, beautiful. Look at that. Beautiful. Now let's try taking out our pop-top cans. Come on, baby. Just ease it out gently. Nice and easy. Here we go. Ooh, 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 wiggle, wiggle. Yeah. All right. Nice. Look at that. Beautiful. Okay, and finally, last guy. Come on out, baby. Now these are going to cool on this rack completely for about an hour. The longer they sit, the more the flavors will meld and get together. And, okay, let's see. Concentrate, Kathleen. Here we go. Oh, yeah. 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 Oh, whoa. All right. Peel this one off. Oh, yeah, look it. Everybody's good. Now, you see how what I mean about you might want more brown bread than this. Look at that little knob. We're going to let these cool. These are best served with butter or cream cheese. They're absolutely delicious. They go excellent with the baked beans. 5 hours. That is good. I'm calling it. I'm calling it. The beans are definitely cooked. Good stuff. Now we just got to let them cool for a minute and get a taste. All right, I got my taster with me, and we're about to taste our Boston baked beans and brown bread. Looks delicious, doesn't it?
Smells even
Well,
better.
yours is sliding. Be careful. Grab your fork. Let's give this a taste. Mmm.
She went for the beans first. I went for the bread
Brown
first.
bread. I know. It's both good. The beans are like sweet. Probably why I liked them so much as a kid. Did you have any special Saturday night supper traditions growing up?
No. It was chicken and fudge. If my mom was making
Chicken
fudge,
and fudge.
if my mom made chicken or fudge, that was a big night.
Mm. Well, what do you think of Boston baked beans?
I love them.
You like them better than red beans and rice beans? Ooh, now we're talking.
Well, for certain things. I mean, it goes with ham. Cured ham, much better than anything. But if I was going to do andouille sausage, I'd go red beans and rice.
You know what we used to have with our Boston baked beans and brown bread?
No, what?
Hot dogs. Hot dogs and beans. Franks and beans.
We call that beanie weenies.
Beanie weenies. They make those in a can, don't they? I think they do.
They weren't as good.
No. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about these beans here. When they cool off, okay, they will be more dry than you're used to, and definitely more dry than they are when you get them in the can. So what you do is when you want to reheat them, just add a little water. And if you like your beans more soupy, just add more water during the cooking. Okay, so you can really customize it. Like I said, this is a ton of beans. I'm going to freeze a bunch of it, and we're going to be having beans coming out of our ears for.
Because I'm a red beans and rice guy. Beans are good for you.
They are good for you.
And socially, maybe not the most acceptable, but they are definitely tasty and really good for you. Yeah. You'll feel better eating them.
Definitely worth making. Now, I invite you to try this. Boston baked beans, Boston brown bread. Be as authentic a Bostonian as you can without parking your car in Harvard Yard. So that's going to be it for today. Thank you for joining us, joining us. And we'll see you again next time on Cooking It Real. Bye, everybody.
Very good.
Good. I'm glad you like it. Yay!